I never forget, when I got my first camera, I thought I was the man. I shot everything in automatic, photos, video, I did everything in automatic. I thought I was the one. I thought I was him, but I wasn't. I was really a weenie, man. You shoot photos and video in automatic all the time, you a weenie, man. I'm sorry to tell you that. You don't even know, but you out here weaning it. You out here like weaning it. Can I even say the word weaning it? Weaning it up. Yeah, you're out here weaning it up. That's a hard word for me to say. I can't even pronounce it. My tongue can't get. You're out here weaning it up. Yeah, there we go. Anyways, look, it's cool because I'm finna unwean you. Because by the time you get done watching this, you won't be shooting automatic no more. You're gonna be shooting the manual and everything you do. Unless you're vlogging, man. Look, if you vlogging, it's understandable. But anything else, don't be a weenie, bro. I got you though. I'm finna unweenie you. Don't even worry about it. I'm finna break it down real quick. There's only 3 things you need to know on how to make your video and photos more clear and smooth. We talking about ISO, we talking about aperture, and we talking about shutter speed. Then the main 3 things you need to know to get your foot in the door on how to work your camera. That's really all you need to know. And once you know them things, you will be unweenied. You will no longer be a weenie, okay? And on top of that, I'm gonna give you a cheat sheet to screenshot because when I first started off, did my PC just turn off? I need you in the background. Stay on. Anyways, like I was saying, man, I'm gonna give you a cheat sheet to screenshot because I remember when I first started off with my camera, I kind of forgot some of the stuff I had learned, so I had to go back and rewatch the things so I can remember it again. Don't worry about it. So just be ready to screenshot or however you gotta do it. I got you. Before we break out this down, there's 2 things I want to tell you real quick. The first thing is, this is easy as heck. So don't be tripping out thinking all these numbers are complicated and there's so much on my screen on my camera I don't know how to remember. It's easy. You're gonna remember it. It might be overwhelming, but it's actually super easy. If I can do it, you damn sure can do it. The second thing is this. The only thing that these 3 things have in common is that they all affect your lighting. So you're always gonna have to adjust these 3 things together in some kind of way to get the lighting and the quality to your personal preference. Now, let's start off right into it because I'm going through this quick and thoroughly. ISO, what is ISO? It's always most of the times at the bottom of your camera. ISO is pretty much fake lighting. And when you crank your ISO up, you're gonna have more light. You're gonna be able to see more in the photo, more in the video, but you're also gonna have a lot more noise and a lot more grain. Now that's not always a bad thing because sometimes you wanna have a lot of noise and a lot of grain in your photos or whatever, depending on what kind of style and effect you're going for. So it's not always a bad thing, but if you're going for a clear and smooth photo or video, you wanna make sure you have the ISO adjusted the right way because the higher you turn it up, the more noise and grain it is. The lower the number, the less lighting, the less grain. So it's really simple. The higher the number, the more noise and grain you get, and the more fake lighting you're using. The lower the number, the less noise and grain you get, the less fake lighting. I mean, that's really ISO, it's just fake lighting. The next one is just as easy because it's the exact same thing, just the opposite. We're talking about aperture. The lower the number, the more light you have, the brighter it's gonna be. The higher the number, the less light you have, the darker it's gonna be. It's the same thing, but the opposite. So when you go on your camera, you look and you see it says f1.8, f1.2, f3.6, f4.8, f22, f11, f12, that is f-stop. F-stop and aperture are pretty much the same thing, so don't be confused about aperture being different from f-stop. No, but there is one thing that makes this very different from ISO. The higher that f-stop, the more depth of field you get in that background. So all that means is you're not gonna have that much separation from your subject and the background. Because the f-stop is so high, f22, f18, whatever, your background is not as blurred out. It's in focus just as much as your subject that you have in front of the camera. That's why a lot of times you'll see a lot of landscape photographers and people within that niche use f-stops that are always high so that they can have the foreground and background in focus without only having to have foreground in focus while the background is out of focus. They want to capture the full image to be able to show that landscape and things like that. So the higher the f-stop, f12, f18, f22, and so on, the less light you get, but the more depth of field you get. So if that's the case, all we gotta do is flip it the opposite way around. Lower the f-stop, f2.8, f1.2, f3.0. The more light you get and the less depth of field you get. That is what's gonna separate your subject from his background. That's what's gonna make it look more cinematic. That's what's gonna make that separation to where it seems like your camera is more focused on the subject rather than the background itself. And a lot of lenses are different. It has nothing to do with the camera you have. It's the lens itself. Some lenses shoot up to 1.2. Some lenses only shoot up to 2.8. The one we're using right now goes up to 2.8. So that's why you get that depth of field in the background as we do right now. So it's just that simple. The higher the number, the less light, the more depth of field. The lower the number, the more light, the less depth of field. It's kind of like flip-flop, the opposite. It's sometimes harder to remember, but you get it, bro. F-stop and aperture are the same thing. It affects your lighting and it also affects your depth of field in the background. How much depth of field you do and don't have. That is f-stop, that is aperture. That's it. You already over halfway done, man. You already 75% to not being a weenie no more. You like 75% to shooting manual. You about to be unweenie. Like, come on, man. Let's get you unweenie, man. The last one we're talking about is shutter speed. Shutter speed might be the hardest one to remember because it applies to more things than ISO and aperture does, but nonetheless, it's still easy to remember. Like I said before, all three of these things affect lighting, but shutter speed also affects your motion blur. The faster the shutter speed, which means the higher the shutter speed number, the less light you're gonna have and the less motion blur you're gonna have. I bet you I'd do a cartwheel, put my Crocs in sport mode. That wasn't a car, it was kind of a round off, but that's all I can do really. Just but the less shutter speed you have, the less number, the more motion blur you're gonna have. I don't do enough cardio for this. You know something? I can see my footprints. I have big feet. I like it. Why are my feet so big? So what does that mean? This means that whenever you're shooting something, no matter what you're shooting, photo or video, the higher that number, whether you're starting at 250, 350, 1,000, 4,000, whatever, the higher that number, the less motion blur you have. So it's gonna look a lot more smooth, a lot more clear. But you're gonna be darker on the image. The image, the photo, whatever you're doing, is gonna be a little bit darker. Now, the less shutter speed you use, the more motion blur you begin to have, but the more light you allow it to have on the camera. But when it comes to shooting video, please, please, please remember this and try not to forget it. Always shoot double the shutter speed of your FPS. If I didn't say that right, I don't even know if I said it right. If you're recording at 30 frames per second, if you're recording at 24 frames per second, if you're recording at 60 frames per second, double your shutter speed. So if you're shooting at 60 FPS, you need to be recording at 120. If you're shooting at 30, you should be recording at 60 shutter speed. If you're recording at 24 frames, your shutter speed should be at least 48. So if you're recording a video at 120 frames per second, you need to be at what? 240, so that you can get that full clear image without having motion blur in the image. I'm convinced, bruh, this is more of a workout than a video itself. I'm doing all this running to show you all this stuff, and it's getting tired out here. If you shoot a video at 60 frames per second, but your shutter speed is at 30, you're gonna have motion blur and you're gonna be wondering why your video is not as clear when you shot at 60. You gotta double the shutter speed so that the shutter can match the FPS to give you that clear and smooth image. Bro, I almost forgot the cheat sheet for you guys. Here you go. So that number on your camera where it says 1/25, 1/250, 1/340, 1/4000, that is your shutter speed. The higher the shutter speed, the less light you get, the less motion blur you get. The lower the shutter speed, the more light you get and the more motion blur you get. If you've ever wondered when you've seen photography of cars on the highway and all you see is the lights itself going all the way up the highway and all the way, but you can't ever see the cars, all you see is the lights, that is because the photographer has cranked their shutter speed all the way down to where it just says 7, 12, 13, 30, 40, whatever it might be. It just says a number. It doesn't have 1/12, 1/30. It just says 7. That means that your camera is gonna take 7 seconds to take that one photo. So when you take that photo and it's set to 8 shutter speed, that means it's gonna take 8 seconds to take that one photo. So when you take it and your screen goes black and you're like, oh no, my camera's broke, I don't know what I did. You ain't break it, it just takes 8 seconds or 30 seconds to take the one photo. So a lot of times you'll see a lot of photographers have their shutter speed cranked all the way down because they want to capture a subject that isn't moving while everything else around them is moving. So the subject is standing still with no motion blur, but everything else around them is moving. And a lot of times you'll see a lot of filmmakers and cinematographers, for whatever reason, under certain circumstances, turn their shutter speed down to not match the frame rate purposely to get that motion blur to create some type of effect. Whew, that was a mouthful. I didn't realize it was gonna take that long to get that much out. I don't even know if we got it in 2 minutes for each one in time. It might have been like 3 or 4 minutes. I don't even know. You're now on weenie. You're no longer on weenie. Hopefully by now, once you get done watching the video, you go out there, go shoot manual, go practice it until you get it right, perfect it, and don't ever go back to shooting automatic. Don't be a weenie. Do not shoot automatic, man. Just make my day and don't be a weenie, okay? That's all I ask for. But if I didn't, I mean, that's cool too, because I'm really not that good at explaining stuff no ways. I mean, I say a whole lot and I go nowhere. That is the basics on how to shoot manual, how to use ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. But I'm out of here, man. Much love. Y'all be safe.